can't create controls for blend shapes without having actual blend shapes done. So what I'm going to go over is the other part of this that is not something that we've already done, and that is the teeth and tongue setup. I was thinking that I had this in my notes. I'm not seeing it just yet. There it is. All right. So, we have no teeth. We have no tongue. You guys will have to model these, right? How I usually go about it. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do that. How I usually go about it is I will create, and how you do the teeth is up to you, but I usually create a polygon primitive pipe. I'll just pull this up here, and I'm going to set a subdivision on height. And how many subdivisions you have on axis is up to you. But for the sake of the teeth, let me look at this from a top-down view just so I can see it. I'm going to select all the faces on the back and delete them, because I don't need stuff in the back, right? Scale this down a little bit. I wish I had I may have to undo what I did. Yeah, let me just undo what I did real quick and do the I want to set up my thickness a little bit less before I do that. Okay, so that's fine, delete. And I'm just going to scale this down a little bit. And I'm just going to put this over here. Actually, I don't really even need that first subdivision, but I'm going to center this on the face, move it into the mouth. And, you know, like I said, well, I didn't say it yet, but, you know, your teeth model can be as simple or as complex as you want. I do recommend having a separate upper and lower. I mean, you kind of have to. I will go in here and do where is it? Mesh fill, I think. Fill hole, there it is. And I want to do that to cut across there. But, you know, if you want to create individual teeth, you're not getting graded on, you know, modeling for this. But you could, you know, do something like select all these faces and extrude them. And create individual little teeth and stuff like that. You know, you could do stuff like that, right? What I would recommend is if you do individual teeth, just do a mesh combine once it's all done, right? Usually what will happen, and I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to create a reference. And I'm going to go and I'm going to find the girl from my rigging or my modeling class. Alana's seen this already. I'm going to reference this girl in just so that I can show you, because this is a pretty good character rig. She's much larger. And usually they'll have a separate control with floating teeth within the mouth, right? So you can actually move this around, but it also at the same time follows the jaw, right? So, and they have usually an upper and a lower control, you know, because these characters are animated, they're cartoony, right? And so you have the possibility of having some really interesting, you know, crazy poses, and you want to be able to place the teeth where they make sense, right? Okay. So, and there usually is separate gums from the teeth, but they are controlled together, right? So you can do that very easily. Just gonna remove that reference, get her out of there. You know, you can be as detailed as you want with this. For the sake of time, I'm simply just going to have, you know, these two pieces here. You want to make sure that they fit within the mouth, that they're overlapping the tongue or the lips, I should say. All right, so pull that back. I'm going to pull that back a little bit. You know, it's okay if it overlaps into the mouth bag a little bit. That makes sense. You know, gums do that. I recommend keeping it fairly simple, right? Now, the upper teeth are simply going to be parent constrained to the mandible joint, right? So I select the mandible joint. Make sure you delete your history and freeze transformations. I am recording this. Yes, yes. Okay. Delete your history and freeze transformations and name your stuff. Upper teeth underscore geo and lower teeth underscore geo. Freeze transformations. Didn't hit enter. Lower teeth geo. So each one is going to be constrained to its respective joint, right? So this one is going to control the upper teeth. Back to rigging. Constrain parent. I'm just going to make sure that everything is set. It is. And then for the lower as well, hit G to redo that. And when I open and close my jaw, the teeth go along with it, right? When I rotate my head, the teeth go along with it, right? As simple as that for the teeth. The teeth are very easy. The tongue is a little bit different. We're going to have a control system for the tongue. But to create the tongue, first we have to model it, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and save as version 37. So I'm going to start with, as I do with most everything, a cube. Create polygon primitives, cube. Again, I'm just going to pull this up. I'll center my camera, hit F to focus. I'm going to hide my NURBS curves for a minute. And I'm going to do a subdivision on width. That's not subdivision. Subdivision on width. And I'll do a subdivision on height. I'll do one on height, and I'll do 3 on depth to start. Bring this down. Spread that out a little bit more. That's a little bit deep, but that might be okay once we get this where we want it to be. So I'm going to delete my history. Well, I don't need to delete the history yet. What I'm going to do is, now that I have this created, I might actually give it another couple of width subdivisions, right? I do want that center line, and you'll see here in a minute why, right? So now that I have that, I'm going to do mesh smooth. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to just round this out a little bit. Just to help that smoothing. If I want to look at what it's going to look like, I can hit 3. It'll look something like that, right? But I want it to look good on 1. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to lower it down, and mesh smooth, and I have a semblance of a tongue, right? Good level of detail there, right? For the sake of making the back end of this really nice and easy, I'm just going to flatten this. I'm going to select these faces here, scale it on Z to go flat. That should be fine. I'll have to move it into the face before I know exactly how I want this to be on width and things like that, right? So now that I have that, bring this in a little bit. Give it a little bit more width. And move it down a little. You know, how detailed you want to be on the tongue is up to you. What? I don't know what you're talking about. So this will do for me. Now that I have it, delete my history. Make sure you do. This is very important in this case. Freeze transformations again, and name it TONGUE_GEO. But stress that because I hate it when people misspell tongue. It's Tongu. That's how you spell it. All right, so now what we're going to do here is what it's not an official term, but it's what we call, it's how it was presented to me. So this is how I'm saying it to you. It's what we call an offset bind. Okay, again, this isn't something that's found in the industry as far as I know about terminology and stuff like that, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to use joints for the tongue. They're going to be free floating from the hierarchy. I'm going to hide my geo. I'm going to add my teeth to the geo layer so that they will hide as well, and I have easy access to the tongue. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create some joints. I'm going to go to skeleton, create joints, just like I've done in the past. I'm going to start at the center of the back. This is why I have my height, my divider in the dead center of the tongue, right? Hold down V, snap to vertex. That's the first joint placed. Then, if I pop to either a side view, I'll do a side view, or a top view. You can go either way. But now that I have this placed, I can place more joints through the tongue along the center of this geometry here. That way it will line up. Once I have that last joint placed, again, that's just for the sake of the orientation of this joint. I can delete it. It's done its job. You want to name these joints. So tongue 01 JNT, copy, paste 2, paste 3. I'm just hitting the down arrow and hitting enter. 4, down, enter, paste. 5, enter, paste. And this will be end joint. All right. So these joints will be yellow at some point, right? Now, I don't want to directly skin the tongue. What I want to do is I want to use a lattice deformer on the tongue. Okay, I'm going to hide the other joints, and I'm going to hide the nerved curves. Looks like I have more joints that I need to hide. There we go. All right, so I'm going to take the geometry here, and again, frozen transformations, absolutely vital on this. And we're going to go to deform lattice. Okay, and what this does, I think I've shown this to you before, but what this does is if I right click on this and choose lattice point, I can select these points on the lattice, and wherever I move these around, it will modify the geometry. If I move the geometry outside of the scope of the lattice, it starts to pop back to normal, right? So this lattice gives you the capability of, modifying the geometry, okay? Now, I want to add some divisions. I'm going to add some divisions along the depth of this. And that is, oops, that is the U direction. I'm just going to do 7. Why not? So, and again, this gives you a lot more control over individual parts and things like that. Technically, we probably don't need that much. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do this joint to joint, right? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let me try 6 and see if the lattice lines up with the joints. Close, but that's fine. Okay, that'll do. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to skin the lattice to the joints. The tongue is already controlled by the lattice. So if I skin the lattice to the joint system, the joints control the lattice controls the geometry, right? I don't have to skin the tongue. And this works the same way. I select the joint base, shift select the lattice, go to skin, bind skin. I'll do it the exact same way I did previously. Error. Why do I have an error? Let me see if it applied. It did apply. What was my error? Oh, it failed computing weights. Okay, maybe the geodesic, not geodesic. Yeah, it is geodesic. Maybe the geodesic voxel had issues with it, the fact that it wasn't actual geometry or something. But it did do weighting, right? You can see that it works. Blip, blap, blip, blap, blip, blap, right? Okay, so now that I have that, what I want to do is I want to set up some controls on the jaw to control the joints, right? Because what I'm going to do and what I'm going to end up doing here is I'm going to have this kind of control. I'm going to have X rotation. I'm going to have Z rotation. I'm going to have Y rotation. And I'm going to have scaling, as well as a smoothing similar to what we did on the fish. Because when you scale the joints out and you start to move them around and stuff, you know, if you don't have a good level of detail, it's not going to look good, right? So we want to be able to give our tongue a smoothing capability, okay? So, so I need to create my attributes on my jaw control. Easy. Edit, add attribute. I'm just going to give it a displayable tongue controls. Label. Override nice name. Add. Done. Now, I'm going to do double underscore tongue RX for rotate X. And this is going to be default of 0. I'm not going to give it any minimum or maximum. I'm just going to leave it as is. Click add. I thought I had override on. Let me just double underscore tongue X override. Oh, it adds that space because I capitalized. I'm just going to take the space out. Add tongue RY. Space out. You don't have to. It's just I'm used to doing that type of naming convention for the sake of programming. And then I'm going to do a tongue smooth. tongue smooth. Override, face out. For tongue smooth, I'm going to do this with integers, minimum of 0, and I'll do a maximum of 3. Why not? Default of 0. Click OK. So this will be, technically I could do this as an enum. I could do it as a list, similar to what we did with the smoothing on the fish, but I can also have it be an integer where it simply goes 0, 1, 2, 3, dragging, from left to right. Or if I highlight tongue smooth, I can middle click drag left to right, just like that. However you want to do it is up to you, whether or not you want to do it as an enum, drop-down menu, or through values. That's fine. It's up to you. Now, in order to connect this, I need to create a smooth, right? So I have already deleted my history, and I want to go to my modeling, and I want to do mesh smooth. So now I have that level of detail, the capability of the smoothing through that poly smooth face node. Making sure nobody's chatting and needs something. Okay, so I have that poly smooth face node. The maximum is going to be 3, which is probably a bit much. I could probably only go 2, but that's fine. And the default will be 0, which will be just like it was before, right? So I'm going to use my connection editor because this is going to be a one-to-one connection on my divisions. So I want to select this poly smooth face. Again, I can highlight it to get the name, copy, and up here in the top here, I have this little menu. Again, if it's hidden, it's to the left of this little sign-in area. If it's hidden, you can pop it out. There it is. It's usually on something like this. By default, you have to hit the drop down, go select by name, and paste it and hit enter, and that will select the poly smooth face node. And I'm just going to go to my connection editor. So Windows, General Editors, Connection Editor. What's being controlled? I like to do it on the right side, so I'm going to do reload right. And there's my divisions right there. Again, it doesn't have to be that way. If you want to switch it to what's being controlled being on the left, that's okay too, right? But I like it to be on the right side. And then I select my jaw control, reload left. So we're going to do tongue smooth to divisions. Boom. That's it. That's all I need to do for that. Now, when I set my tongue smooth, easy. And it's a keyable attribute, so I can switch that out, Now I have my rotates. I'm going to be doing the same thing. Do not rotate this base joint, okay? We don't need this. It's going to rotate the entire thing. What we want to do is we want to keep the base in place and rotate every joint after that, right? Okay, so I'm going to select my hierarchy here, reload right, and there's all my rotates, right? And I'm just going to do tongue RX to rotate X on each of these joints, right? Don't miss one. If you want to do it individually, you can do it individually, but it's easy enough to rotate Y, rotate Y, rotate Y, rotate Y, rotate Z, rotate Z, rotate Z, rotate Z, rotate Z, rotate Z. If you're not sure, check each joint. Select the first one, hit the down arrow. All three of these should have a little red, yellow connection. Yellow, 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 all the way down. Now I have, oh, I forgot to do the scale. That's okay. I'll get to that. Tongue RX works just like that. RY works just like that. RZ works just like that. I do need to add the scale. So I'm going to add that attribute. And I'm going to do double underscore tongue stretch. Override, take out the space. The minimum for this, I usually do because you don't want it to go negative, right? And you don't want it to go to 0 because we're dealing with scaling. Scale to 0 means it disappears, right? So I'm going to do a minimum of negative 0.5. No, I'm sorry, 0.5, not negative 0.5. So it'll go, it'll pull the tongue back by half, right? Maximum is up to the animator, in my opinion. You know, look at Spawn. But I want the default to be 1. And I'm going to do this as a float. I don't want it to be integer. I had it set to integer from the previous one. All right. So I'm not going to give it a maximum. I'm going to give it a minimum 0.5 default of 1. Click OK. There's my tongue stretch. Usually I'll put that above the smooth, but that's okay. It's fine where it is. And this one is going to be it says on my notes to do a set driven key or connection editor. I'm going to do the connection editor in this case. So same thing, connection editor. Set driven key limits it. Connection editor doesn't, right? So this is going to be the same, but I'm also going to use my base joint for the scale as well, right? So I'm going to use all these joints. So I highlight all the joints, reload right, tongue stretch, and this is going to be scale on X only, right? Because this is, it's, you know, going from one joint to the next, scale on X. Tongue stretch, scale X, all the way down the joint chain. Now, so now that I have that, test it. Minimum 0.5, maximum non-existent. Right? When you get that big stretch, it looks bad. So let's give it some smoothing. Rotate Z, rotate Y, rotate X. Works. Okay. Now, is this the best tongue setup? Not at all. Is this the way to do it in the industry? No. But it'll work for what we're doing. Usually in the industry, they'll have individual, almost like a spine type of setup for the tongue. Now, I have the controls set up. That works. Biggest problem I have right now, it don't follow. Okay, so what we want to do for this, and this will probably be the last thing that we do, is we want to take the, let me go back to my previous page. the tongue joints are joints, right? So we want those under the joints group. So I'm going to hit P for that. The geo, all of this geo, I'm just going to go ahead and temporarily put this in the geo group. Hit P. The lattice is a type of control, so I'm going to put that in the controls group. Now, does that mean that it follows now? No. What I need is for the joints to be constrained to the, where's my joints? To the head joint. No, I'm sorry, to the base jaw joint. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to group this tongue joint, and I'm going to call it tongue group. I'm going to center my pivot, bring it up, and then I'm going to set the pivot to that base jaw joint as well. So hold down D. Actually, let me hide my geo. Hold down DV, and I'm just going to move that right up there. And I'm going to parent constrain to this base jaw joint. So I select the base jaw joint, control click the tongue group, constrain, parent. Again, everything is set. Does it follow? Let me check my, let me open this up and make sure that it's following along. It is. Does it still work? It does. Zero out my rotations on my controls. So that works. Are we done? Not quite yet. I'm going to save as because I've done a lot of work. We're almost out of time. Does it move? Yes. Does it move from this? Yes. Does it rotate? Yes. I'll rotate the jaw open so that we can see the tongue. Does it rotate? Yes. Does it scale? Nope. All right, so what I need here, I'm just going to undo the scale. Let me rotate that back to 0. What I need here is I need my, I already have my scale groups set up, okay? What I want to do is I want the joints group, not the joints group, the tongue group to be in the scale joints group. I'm going to hit P to put that in there. Let me just make sure that that's exactly what I wanted to do. All right, let me see if the tongue is scaling, but the teeth are not. So now that I have that, the teeth are in the geo group. I want to put the teeth in the scale geo group. I'm not putting the tongue in the scale geo group because the joints are controlling the scale of the tongue. So now, when I scale this down, everything works. The last thing I need to do is hide my lattice. You don't want to see the lattice, just select it and hit Control H. I want to color my joints. I could add those to the center joints layer. That should take care of it. And that's basically it for setting up the tongue controls and the teeth. You know what I mean? All right. So I'm going to save as version 39. Save as, overwrite my final. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to do just what I did with the squid. I'm going to duplicate my Rodney skin. I'm going to create my facial expressions. I'm going to set up my controls. There's a lot that goes into these facial controls because what we're going to do, just to go over the assignment sheet real quick. And CJ, can you pass these out? I think there's... finish the face controls, eyes, teeth, and tongue. Create blend shapes and controls for the facial expressions. Read pages 85 to 105, 203 to 212 in the book. Again, it's for reference. Follow the lecture in the class. Name your groups. Name the objects in the scene. Do not create another Maya project directory. Use your current directory for this project. Set up the eye for the character. That should already be done. Set up the blend shapes for the character. Add teeth to the character. Follow directions from the demonstration. Create a graphical control in the Maya viewport for the blend shapes, just like we did for the squid. The eyes must have a central control and sub-controllers, just like we've already done. Character look blend shapes must work with the sub-eye controllers. So what we're going to do is we're going to have blend shapes that are for the eyelids that deform the eyelids when the character looks up and down, left and right. Okay? Because that's how lids work. The lids shape themselves based on the direction that you're looking. So we're going to have that kind of control. And then we'll have facial expressions for your brows up and down, your lids closed and open, your mouth closed, and some look left, look right, and stuff like that. These are, you have 15 blend shapes, right? So it's a little bit of work, but you have a week and a half to do it. So create teeth for character, simple geometry to fit inside the mouth character. Parent, constrain the upper teeth to the roof joint of the mouth, lower teeth to the term jaw joint in the mouth. Duplicate your geo, delete the history on the teeth, have a classmate check your work. Rubric on this. All of the brow, eyelids, and mouth blend shapes are created properly, look good, and work with their controls for 9. All look blend shapes for the look blend shapes created properly, look good, and working with the eye controls. The blend shapes, it cuts off here. So blend shapes work with the individual left and right. It says eye controls, so left and right eye controls for 9. Sliders created and working with the other blend shapes for 9. Left, right eye main controls created and working. Individual eye controls move with the main control and control their respective eyes for 9. Teeth created moving with the jaw for 8. Student used the same project directory, didn't create a new one for 2. Saving iterative versions for 2. Critique, ask and answer questions for 2. Total number of points on this, 50. All right. So I will get these videos made as soon as possible. I'll try to get at least one. I may not be able to get all of it done tomorrow, but I'll try to get at least a video done tomorrow for the blend shapes. But at the very least, you have the teeth and tongue that you can get started on. All right. Any questions before we go? I'll be here till 1 today.